Welcome to The Third Story. I'm Leo Sidran. Today's conversation features singer, songwriter, and recovering doctor Jorge Drexler. I am really excited to share this conversation with you, and here's why. I think Jorge Drexler is one of the most important and creative songwriters in the Spanish language today. As a matter of fact, I think he's one of the most important and creative songwriters alive today. I loved his writing and his singing from the first moment I heard him, when I was a foreign exchange student living in Spain in the mid-1990s. At that time, he was still largely unknown. I just happened to stumble upon one of his CDs, and I flipped for it. Since then, he's gone on to achieve great success and prominence in the Spanish language community all over the world. This is, I think, because of his thoughtful and empathetic ability to write about questions of identity, humanity, mortality, sexuality, and language, and to do it in a beautiful way. In our conversation, he says, everything comes from empathy. I have the deep belief that I'm part of the human race, and so go inside one human and you'll be able to access all humans. We have the same questions. Maybe that's why before we ever met, I felt intimately familiar with him and I felt connected to him. I felt like we were already friends. We did eventually meet. Actually, we met a long time ago in the late 90s in Madrid, and we became friends and collaborators. Our families became close, and in 2005 we worked together on the project that would reframe both of our careers. Jorge wrote a song for the film The Motorcycle Diaries, and he and I produced the song together. That song, called Al Otro Lado del Rio, would go on to win an Academy Award for Best Original Song, and Jorge made history by winning the first Spanish-language song ever in that category, and also by somewhat infamously singing his acceptance speech in Spanish. Here's a little taste of that song.
Clavo mi remo en el agua, llevo tu remo en el mío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río. El día le irá pudiendo poco a poco al frío. Creo que he visto una luz al otro lado del río. Sobre todo creo que no todo está perdido. Tanta lágrima y yo soy un vaso vacío. Oigo una voz que me llama, casi un suspiro. Rema, rema, rema. Rema, rema, rema.
The Academy Award didn't change Jorge's creative trajectory necessarily, but it did put him on the map, and since then he's gone on to win multiple Latin Grammys and collaborate with some of the biggest and most interesting Latin artists today, from Chilean rapper Ana Tijoux to Shakira, from the legendary Brazilian Caetano Veloso to the legendary Cuban Pablo Milanés. Jorge was born in Uruguay, that small South American country sandwiched between Brazil and Argentina, and he stayed there until he was nearly 30. He was born into a family of doctors, and he followed in his parents' footsteps, becoming an ear, nose, and throat doctor in the family practice. The whole time, he was also developing as a singer-songwriter. In what has become kind of an artistic creation myth, Jorge was discovered in South America by a well-known Spanish singer-songwriter named Joaquin Sabina, who invited the young Dr. Drexler to come to Madrid. Sabina said, "There's opportunity for you in Spain." So Jorge did it. He moved to Spain. He got a record deal. He started to make a name for himself slowly but surely, and he's lived there for 20 years. The early part of his career was spent explaining himself to his new audience and exploring his own identity in the process. Recently, Jorge has become more of a star in Latin America than he ever was in Spain. His life is in Spain, but his career is across the ocean in the Americas. In November, I was in Madrid performing, and I spent much of the week I was there chatting with Jorge, discussing, debating, catching up. This conversation was recorded in his Madrid home over breakfast. We had agreed to do the interview the night before, quite late, so when I arrived at his home, he was just waking up. He had been on tour for the better part of a year and just returned home that week. Let me set the scene. It's about 9:30 a.m. There are two birds in a cage chirping away. I wait. I make breakfast. Coffee. Toast. I wait. I wonder if friends make good interview subjects. I wonder where to start. Then all at once, he's here, and we're at the table. A place he'll refer to later on in the conversation as being in paradise. We're having breakfast and talking.
I think in English we should do it. Yeah, we have to do it in English. I have marmalade and butter here on the table.
Okay, yes. Yeah, Okay,
so paint me a picture of what your life looks like right now. I mean, you just arrived back in Madrid after what feels like, in some ways, many years of being on the road.
yeah. I think this was the last tour until further advice, further notice. So because I'm really exhausted and really tired, I would go 2 or 3 weeks, stay maybe 10 days at home, and go back to South America 2 or 3 weeks. In the last 2 years, I might have crossed the Atlantic 22 times. That's 44 times, crossing the Atlantic. 22 and one
Each way.
So it's 44 times across the Atlantic, and I'm very happy that I have a lot of work, but I got to a moment that I wasn't actually enjoying the news. We have new shows, and I would say, and so I don't like that. I really like enjoying what I do, and I consider myself a privileged person that can do something that you love. But right now, besides everything and being tired and being in a continuous jet lag for 4 years, and I have a family. I have 3 children, and I have small children, and I want to be at home in Madrid. The thing is that it grew a lot in another place different from the place I live in South America, no? My career. So,
do you think that it would have grown if you had stayed there? You've been in Spain for 20 years. You came to Spain 20 years ago looking for a certain kind of opportunity. You left behind your previous life as a doctor and became a professional musician. And 20 years later, you find that your success is much closer to your original home than you maybe had expected.
It comes and goes, I just in the first 10 years, it was important to be here. The last 10 years, it would have been better for me, work-wise, to live somewhere closer to South America. Maybe, I don't know, Rio de Janeiro, Uruguay, where I come from, or Miami even, or it would have been better work-wise. Because Spain went through this crisis in the last 5 or 6 years, and things froze a little bit here. It's funny because everybody lost followers to the concerts. Almost everybody in my generation. I did not, but I did not lose followers because although I lost Spanish followers, the South American followers grew so much here, even here in Spain, people studying here, that I would have the same number of people in the concert. But I didn't grow in Spain in the last 6 years. I just love Spain. I have 3 Spanish kids and from 2 Spanish mothers, and I love living in Madrid, and it's an amazing city, and my life is really nice here. So although I'm not very much, I spend very few days in Madrid by the end of the year, but I love it here, and I have my friends, and I have everything here. But if I had been living in Buenos Aires, for example, I would have deepened a lot in my relationship with certain South American countries like Brazil or Peru or Colombia or Chile. I would have been able to go, they call me every 2 months, and I can go only maybe twice a year there. So I lose a lot of, small important gigs, or sometimes big unique gig that you say, I won't do the whole effort just for one gig, so I'm going to stay home. But it would have been more dynamic for me. I would have been more integrated to infrastructure everywhere in South America, which is not only work-wise. I mean, also creatively. I mean, we did the last record in Colombia. I have a lot of input from Brazil, for example. A lot of. Every time I go, I meet new musicians. There's an amazing amount of musicians there. I have lots of connections with people in Chile, for example, in Peru. Lots of connections in Mexico too. So I have this feeling that Spain dried out, not only economically, but basically from a creative point of view and from a anemic point of view. It's clearly recovering right now, but the fact that they let culture fall so easily really, made me understand that it actually culture didn't play such an important role in society in Spain. It was the first thing they let fall.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, the government, the audience, I think even us musicians, I mean, the injection of money from the Comunidad Europea, European community, was so intense in the 90s, for example.
Yeah.
When I arrived here, it was so intense that people actually we lost hunger, we lost that will to improve and to, concerts would pop up like mushrooms everywhere. It was really easy to make a living on this. So you didn't have to think about new strategies, new approaches. You did your old stuff, and you would have 40 concerts every summer, very well paid, and then you could just lay down if you did good, you could lay down in your summer house and you have a vineyard,
Mm-hmm.
and make your own olive oil, and say, why should I cross the sea to work? I have enough work here. So a lot of people didn't get out of Spain to work.
And you're talking about a kind of provincialism that started.
Yeah,
to develop.
why should I? Why should I go to play to Guadalajara? I mean, it's a real pain in the ass to cross the Atlantic and then have being jet lagged for 3 days and then start to get to alright with the timetable, then change your country and change it again, and then when you're adapting again, you're back to Spain, and there's 10 days that you're off. So people would stay here, and what happened is that when Spain fell, lots of very big groups, very important groups here, just lost their audiences. And I would always say, I spent my first 10 days here in Spain, which answers the first part of your question, giving connections and helping people from South America to come to Spain to play here.
Your first 10 years here.
My first 10 years in Spain, I spent them, helping people from South America coming here, giving all the connections, all the network here I had in South America. And the last 10 days, I spent helping my colleagues here in Spain go to South America, because they said, we have to go there. Yes. We've never been there. Would love to. I mean, people that had maybe 20 years of a career and have never been to South America. And I said, we used to do 20,000 people arenas here in Spain. Where are the bars we can play in Buenos Aires, And I had that question asked many, many times.
One thing I think is interesting, and I connected with when I first heard your music 20 years ago, was a strong relationship to your own personal identity. Mm-hmm. And, no sé dónde soy, mi casa está en la frontera, my house is on the border. Thinking a lot about where your personal identity begins and ends and how fluid it is. And I really believe that you were looking at it from a personal point of view. You were doing your own personal exploration. But something that did happen in the last 10 years is that there's a huge generation of people who had to go through something similar. And you became a kind of spokesperson for that experience. You had your own previous experience that you could help guide people back and forth across the border.
Yeah, that's true, and that's the way it worked for me. I write for myself. This is the sequence. They told me, do you write? Do you try to help people, or do you write in some way or in their processes? And I say, not directly. I write for myself, but the important point is I consider myself part of a generation. I think I share questions with people. Although I have a very privileged life but I think I'm open to questions in this era. So I write for my questions with the confidence that since I'm equal to my audience, I consider I have this empathy with my audience. I treat them as equals. I hate the word fans, for example. I don't have fans. I don't like fans. I mean, there's enough fanatism in the world. And say something to your fans. I don't have fans. I prefer to say I have clients. You know, to have a client, it's an equal relationship. I mean, you want something from me, or I want something from you, and we do an equal exchange in the same level. To have fans in it means that like you're a kind of statue, and people idolize you. And I personally don't like that kind of relationships, because I like people. I like to talk to people after the concerts. I never go to the hotel after a concert. I would stay there. I would talk to the very last person that stays at the theater, say bye to everybody that works at the theater, and then go out of the theater and meet some more people in the bar in the corner of the theater and keep on talking. I love people. I want to know. My wife always says, Leonardo, she says, you love people. I mean, you just go and you meet people. She's a musician too and an actress, and she goes back to the hotel after the shows because she's more shy. But I do love people. So I write for myself, and I consider that since I know people and I feel equal to them, it would be useful to somebody else what I do. And you know what? I'm really lucky because it looks like it happened from what people say about my songs. I'm really, really lucky. I know people say, you know, we use your songs to put our kids to sleep or to dance with my girl or I know I went through a very difficult period and this song helped me. Yes. It really helped me in this kind of process, in some kind of sad moment or happy moment, you know. So I'm really grateful to him.
Do you think that contact with people also informs your writing now? Like, is it helpful for you to have had that interaction with people all over the world when you write, to think about the experiences that other people have shared with you, or do you still kind of retreat inward when it's time for you to write?
I do retreat inward when I write. It's a classic inward process. Once again, retreating inward myself for me means also being able to go in other people. I mean, because I spent almost 2 years touring and incorporating experiences and meeting people without writing almost for 2 years. Then I go inside myself, but I myself, I'm a reflection of the other people I meet. So going inside this particular human being isn't different from going inside other human beings. I just happen to go inside myself because I have myself to do that. But everything comes from empathy. Mm-hmm. I do have the deep belief that I'm part of the human race. Do you say it that way?
Human race, yes.
Yes, and so just go inside one human and you will be able to access to all the other humans, at least in their culture and their generation. Yeah. We have the same questions, or more or less. I don't pretend to have the same questions that people that lives in Taiwan, for example, or that people used to be in 14th century had. I mean, but I do consider myself that to have the average questions about life. You know, maybe, I don't know, I make a living on that, so I might put more attention on that. So when I write to myself and I think this is going to help me understand this divorce, for example, I know that it's something that's happening to 60% of my generation. So I know it's going to help me. It's going to be really good for me to write about this. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be good at the end. It's going to be painful, but it's going to be good at the end. It's going to heal me at the end. And when I come out of that introspection, I also know in one side of my mind that it's also going to be understood by other people. I'm completely alone when I'm right, but somehow being deeply connected with myself and caring about being connected with myself, with my feelings, somehow connects me with other people. Although I'm not thinking about them when I write. Mm-hmm. Writing is a really introspective moment for me. It's not a happy moment for me. I don't enjoy writing. To be sincere, like you say, oh God, I have therapy today. Woo! I really enjoy therapy. I go there and I have a great time. It's not like that. You go to therapy because you need to, and at some point you end up enjoying it at a long term because it's good for you. If you consider therapy is good for anybody, I don't know. You might do something else to heal yourself, like go running or go fishing. But it's not something that you do and you would say I enjoy that. I enjoy playing live. I enjoy being on stage. That's pure happiness for me. But writing is, I become very bad company. The last records I had to isolate myself because I didn't have a lot of time. And once I get into composition, I don't get out until I bring the mammoth home. It's like I go there and I come back with 15 songs, and until I have those 15 songs in my hand, I'm so obsessed with composition that I prefer not to be home, because I'm not a nice person to be with. I'm either euphoric because I found this rhyme and I could close this verse, or I'm completely absent in my mind because I've been looking for that rhyme for 2 days on a row with no outcome. And so I look through people. I don't share life with people.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting, the comparison to therapy, because in both cases it's a kind of a need to unburden something in yourself. I know you say some people might get the same experience from running or from fishing or from going to yoga or whatever, but it is an interesting choice that you made, because in both cases it might not be what we want to do, but we know it's what we need to do. Mm-hmm. And it gives me the sense that there's a part of you that is compelled to self-expression through writing.
I think it could have been different. I could have had a different life, although I'm not really sure about that. I don't know. The thing is, I'm already in the game, and I already learned that cycle of expression of inward. It's like breathing for me. It's exactly the same process. There's breathing in, and if you want to breathe out, you have to breathe in before. It's like so. There's a period where I go inward as deep as I can, and then the deeper I go inward, the more air I have to throw outside. So it's the going inward, it's writing. Going outward is touring for me. It's breathing outward. Exhaling.
Yes,
it's touring, inhaling. It's writing for me, and that's it. It is as simple as that. If I do a brief, short inhale, I have little air to throw out. Then if I go really deep, I have like this deep breath, and I need both of them. I really need both of them, and I've built this equilibrium in which I'm comfortable that, but I need both. I can't have only one of them. That's what's happened. I'm feeling asphyxiated right now because I've been exhaling for too long, and I really need to go inward. I need to stop. I need to read. I need to listen to music. I need to, I get these magnificent poetry books or incredible music I bought in Barranquilla, or these incredible vinyls I bought in Rio. They gave me in Rio de Janeiro or in Quito, and I come home and I just pile them. I have a pile like 1 meter high of things that I've already selected in my trips, which I would say 80% of the stuff I have in that room is very important stuff for me, only I don't remember why, because I didn't have time to just to organize those things. And I don't have time to organize them, and I have already a new bag, and you can see the process. You can go into my bedroom and you will see next to my bed these new things I brought from the last trip that was Argentina, Brazil and Mexico. Lots of incredible poetry books. Sometimes I have them 2 or 3 times because I don't remember I bought them because I didn't have time to read them. So now it's the time to stop. I want to learn piano again. I want to go back. I played piano for 5 years when I was a very little boy, from 5 to 10. I really want to nurture myself, inspire, and in every way,
Jorge Drexler talking about his desire to go inward again, to find new inspiration. I hope you're enjoying this. I know I am. In 2005, Jorge once again received an invitation from Joaquin Sabina, the same guy who invited him to move to Spain 10 years earlier. This time it didn't involve moving across the world, but rather collaborating on a song together. Sabina suggested that they write a song using the classic Spanish poetic form called decimas, a rhyming structure that only exists in the Spanish language and that has buried within it a cultural history with deep roots and somewhat significant implications today. In the end, the collaboration with Sabina never really happened, but the invitation opened a door for Drexler that never closed. As he explored the process of writing in decimas, he discovered that all over Latin America, there's a tradition of spontaneous, improvised decimas poetry, linked deeply to folk tradition and adapted to every country's specific cultural identity. Here we talk about what that means, and eventually about language and authenticity. I have to tell you, these are the questions that drive me every day. This is it. So keep listening, because here it comes.
You go inward in this way that you describe as very personal and very emotional in some ways. And I think you're also somebody who is, at the same time, motivated by the search for new technique or for new process. And so, like, one of the things that we were talking about earlier this weekend was how discovering something like the decima form changed the way you think about language and creation. And I was reminded of this when you said to me a few minutes ago, because I'm a human being, I can express the feelings of a human being, not necessarily somebody in 14th century Tibet or whatever. But you did discover a poetic form in decimas that's very strong and very historically enduring.
Yeah.
And you found a way to bring new meaning within an old form. So I'm curious about that experience and how it's affected your relationship with writing and language.
Yeah, the fact, when I say that I can't relate completely to the questions that somebody at in Middle Ages had about, they had other problems in their minds. I mean, surviving more than 35 years was already a very big thing at the time. But there is a common ground. There is a common ground with this guy in the cave 80,000 years ago, before agriculture, and with a just developed language. There is a common ground. I mean, there are a big common ground. Just being human, it's a common ground, a very big common ground. So you will find things that go through the centuries, like the guitar, for example, or the decimas, which are actually the actual guitar is more or less, it has almost the same age, like the decimas, for example, or like the sonata form in music. There are things that endured. I mean, very little people write in sonata today, but you have lots of people rhyming in decimas. It's like a linguistic prodigy.
So it only exists in Spanish.
It only exists in Spanish. We know the year it was born. There was a book when it was born in 1591 by Vicente Espinel, a musician from Malaga, who also added the fifth string to the guitar. So I mean, he was known as a musician, and he would write songs and poetry too. And at some point, he came out with this structure. I mean, the structure was already around, but he focused it and he concentrated it. A few years later, Lope de Vega, and one of the biggest writers in Spanish in history, named the decima Spinella after Vicente Espinel. He was like he admired him, and he said, let's put this name to this verse. Let's put your name to this verse. So since the 16th century until today, it was at first alive in Spain until sonnet came in and became the cultural form of verse, the hype for
the high form,
the high form, and the hype also for it was like in fashion. But decima had already crossed to South America in the 16th, 17th, 18th century, and it disappeared in Spain. Like many things, like this thing I started telling you, they let cultural things fall down a lot in this country. Every intelligent Spanish I met, people that have a vision about their country, and there's many intelligent people here that I get to talk to. They all agree that we in Spain, because I consider myself, I've been living here for 20 years. we here in Spain let things fall too easily. We're not a faithful audience. We're not a faithful. We don't take care of our cultural stuff. You know, flamenco is much better regarded in Japan than it is in Spain. Actually, everybody talks about flamenco, but they don't really. You know, they don't have an institutional relationship, a serious one with flamenco. We could talk about this a lot, but then the decima was left here because in the same fashion that happens with other things in music, was left for something that came from another place that was also beautiful, like sonnet. But we in South America also, on the other hand, like it happens in Mexico, you have in Mexico all the Baroque guitars in Mexico. I'll show you mine there, my jarana, no? All those, there were many kinds of guitars in the Baroque in Spain. And only one type survived, that it's the actual Spanish guitar that survived until today. But you have all those little guitars. I mean, you have bandurrias here and things, but they're pretty much alive. You have charango, jarana, tololoche, vihuela, cuatro in Venezuela, and they're still alive everywhere. Cavaquinho in Brazil, you know. You have all those sons of the guitars that were kept and taken care of lovingly by South American people, and were forgotten by Spanish. And exactly the same happened to the decima. It's alive. That form of verse, a very complex form, 8 syllables, each verse, 10 verses, with a B, B, A, C, C, D, D, C structure of rhyme. I mean, you can go on Google. The way I learned it, I went on Google and I said decimas structure, and I learned it on Google. No, but you have that form of verse is alive in every South American country I've ever known. Even República Dominicana. Once you start asking questions, somebody would always come to the post-concert and say, you know, we do have that form of verse in that little town in the coast in República Dominicana, and it's called, I don't know, it's called verseadores or troveros or decimeros or decimistas or son jarocho or canto de mejorana or payadores or I don't know, or repentistas, and it's alive everywhere. And so I started asking myself these questions. How come this incredible meme, you know, those meme, yes. No, those regarding the cultural life as a biological outcome, which I'm completely convinced that it is, no, a kind of very elaborated biological outcome, like the perfume of a flower, no, which it comes from biology, and you can understand that, and culture comes from biology in a very deep molecular way, like your father would say, no? Yeah, in the molecular level.
Yes.
So I would say, how come it's so strong, this meme, and it stayed for so long unchanged? Because in 500 years, sonnet changed so much everywhere, and you have the English way of sonnet. We were looking at a different form of verses and different way to close the tercets, the last two tercets, and different structures. But decima has a different music everywhere, but exactly the same verse form.
So in different countries all over South America and Latin America, they set decimas to a different kind of music that is relative to whatever their musical tradition is.
Some in third, sometimes in 3, sometimes in 4 times. Like milonga, pang, kang, kang, tang, tang, and they improvise in the verse form. Yeah. It's in that 4x4 bar, and you have in Cuba trakata, 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 and it's in 3.
It's in 3/4 time, yeah. It's also very improvised. I mean, you showed me videos on the internet of people improvising decimas, and also in a kind of what we would call a throwdown or a slam, like a poetry slam, a competitive experience, right? There's something about it that mixes high art, because it's a classic literary form, with very popular cultural impulses. And it became, thank you, it became, as you explained to me,
this is coffee sounding in
this is the wrong idea. It became like a folk art. It became part of a folk tradition.
Yeah, and the black tradition too. You know, something I found, which it's a tradition that it's been preserved by black communities everywhere, in Peru, in Cuba, in Mexico, also from Veracruz, and there's something that has to do with rhythm in décimas, that it fits well into the African view of rhythm and period and trance.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, I don't know why, but it does. I think it's a prodigy, really, of language, and it holds the octosyllable, which is the footprint of Spanish language. I mean, they say that the central length of phrases in Spanish is 8 syllables.
Huh.
And you have most of slogans, most of child songs are built in octosyllables. Hasta la victoria siempre, for example, no? What the Che Guevara used to say. To give those revolutionary slogans, no? It's 8 syllables, for example, no? I don't think, although I would love to know more about that, but I don't think there's such a repetitive measure in English in poetry. It's more open, it's more diverse, and you know why? Maybe we could have a long discussion, because English has more monosyllables, so you can build. It's a more flexible language, and you can build different walls of different heights. And but in Spanish we have not so many monosyllables. So the structure of a phrase is determined previously. You can't stop everywhere like you can in English and say can't buy me love. No, you have to no puede comprarme amor. You know, it's like you need more syllables to say the same.
I know you've always said this about English, that you're so envious of great English language writers because they have so much flexibility. And of course, I was seduced by Romance languages because I think they sing so beautifully.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a classical thing. We are programmed as human beings to be attracted by difference, because that would mean, from a biological point of view, that you will mate with somebody from a different town, and thus avoid endogamy.
Yes.
So I think that's really easy to explain from a natural selection from a Darwinian point of view. I mean, you're always attracted and also scared by the difference, you know. But so I do love English language. I learned it since I was a little kid. I love the structure. I love the way it works. I don't write in English. I would love to. I think I might try this year. I've only written a few things in English, and language is very important for me. So
we used to have long conversations about this many years ago, about whether or not it was appropriate and whether or not it was authentic to write in a language that was not your first language or that you didn't dominate.
I used to say such stupid things so long ago. Yes.
I think it's stupid. I think it's part of the evolution of a person.
I changed my point of view. I don't think people should care about authenticity. I think authenticity, it's like sexual identity. You shouldn't care about it because there's not a lot you can do about that. Your sexual identity, you only force it when you're not sure about that. Where the only men that try to appear to be more men and in a normal period of their life are the teenagers, for example. They make this big effort to show that they're men. If you're 33 and you're still making a big effort to show that you're a man, I mean, there's something wrong with you. I mean, because you don't have to do an effort to be inside your identity. It is what you are, and you don't try to hide it, or you don't try to reinforce it. I mean, that's true identity. Now, I mean, identity is one of the things that gets more sick in this society. So that's in a healthy way, I think. Then you have people, from all the ranges of nationalism to fascism, people really trying to reinforce an identity and basically building an identity against another identity, So that's where lots of the problems come from.
You have thought a lot about identity, and I love that one of your conclusions is that authenticity, while it may exist, is not something that can be forced or limited.
There's something about sincerity, for example. I think you do need to make an effort to be sincere at some point. But if you fake sincerity and you do something that, I mean, you're being authentically fake, you know, and so so you end up being authentical anyway. I can read if you're not sincere with me with what you do artistically, I can see that you're authentically, lying to me. This is what you are. You're a person that sometimes lies about, what. And I really like sincerity. I don't think you have to always be sincere, no. But I really like sincerity, and I like to be in touch with what I write. I really do. It's really important for me to feel what I write, and to feel that there's a connection between what I feel and what I write. And the essence of writing is just finding that vector that goes from your heart to the paper. It's like como un hilo, how do you say that?
Like a thread.
Like a thread, and just tensing that thread from both sides, from the paper and from your heart, and just knowing that what you're putting there, it's not written with a hand. It comes from, when you find out that if you want to play the shaker, you should have this feeling that you're oscillating with your whole body. Mm-hmm. It's not just,
the wrist.
I mean, when you're really good at it, you can only play it with your hand.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, you have to feel it with your body. And that's exactly the same process when you write. I mean, I'm not only writing with my hand, with the words. Mm-hmm. No, I'm not writing only in the computer like with my fingers. Mm-hmm. I have to feel that this is being pushed by a stronger force from behind. That's sincerity for me. Or authenticity at some point.
If it's being pushed from a stronger point of view, I mean, I refer to it sometimes as opening a channel and letting something flow through you.
Yeah, that's one of the most common images, yeah.
And in that way, that's why I think it's similar to improvisation or spontaneous creation. Mm-hmm. And I think we have a different idea about this, maybe, because I think that when you are creating, you are improvising, and then you look at what you have improvised and you adjust it. And when we spoke about this the other day, because you showed me decimas and you showed me there's a whole tradition of people who improvise decimas. They improvise verse in real time in a very specific format. And I consider this to be almost like a kind of spontaneous authorship or a spontaneous composition. How are these different to you?
I'm happy you asked me this at this time in the morning. No, we were having coffee, people heard us. And so that means I just woke up. I'm in a very jet-lagged week. I just came from Mexico, and so I tend to say very irresponsible things at the time of the moment. But I also sometimes this is the hours where I write. These are the few lucid hours I have in the day. So I might say lots of things here that I will regret later. But I do think different than when we talked yesterday. I think you have two kinds of humans relating to creation. You have el disparador y el cuidador, like the lighter and the carer.
Yes. The igniter and the caretaker.
The igniter and the caretaker. And I think you need both of them to write a song. And you need both. You ignite, but you stop and take care of that. You ignite and you stop and you take care of that. You put it down in a paper, and then you go back to ignition and you write again, but then you stop and you dosify it. And the improviser is not a carer, it's not a taking care. He's just an igniter, and it's a permanent igniter.
Yes.
Very inspired, very selfish. I mean, he just goes on, just goes on, and in a good way. Very generous too. At the same time, just leave things floating outside and doesn't look back. He always look into the future. Yes. But I think I myself, I have to take care of both sides. I can't do it another way. I can improvise for a long period, and it's a very, very, it changes the way your mind feels. It's a thrilling spiritual state of mind, and but at some point, I never had the doubt that achieving beauty in a certain form of art that has something like a permanency, it requires a lot of autocritics that the igniter doesn't have. I mean, autocriticism is the opposite to improvisation. I mean, you just go forward. But sometimes, so I let things come out, and then I come back and I say, okay, let's thank the igniter, but give me this. I'm gonna take a little care. I'm gonna put a little order with reason with this, and I will make it part of a bigger structure. So I think that's why there's lots of people that are incredible improvisers, and they're not good melody writers. Although you have people that do both very, very, very clearly, and you have lots of composers that would come out with the most beautiful melody, but wouldn't be able, to just improvise it all the time. I think there are two setups in human creativity. Yeah. It's like the fuel and the flame. You really need both of them. You need, if you don't start the fire, I mean, it doesn't burn. But if you don't have fuel to put inside, so I gather a lot of emotions. But then the moment I write, the igniter has the priority. I mean, if it goes on, if ideas keep flowing, you don't stop that part of yourself. But of course you have to, at some point, you have to have this relationship with yourself, like a little schizophrenic. I mean, you have to let yourself go up to some point, but always being able to go back and if you let yourself go completely, I mean, it's a great experience. But at the end of the day, you might have touched 5 great ideas and then ended up with nothing, which is fine. I mean, you don't have to write songs. You just having a whole day, of letting yourself go and playing the guitar. It's an amazing experience in itself. I am burdened with the thing that when I spend, I have this, I may say, also utilitarian way of relating to inspiration, which is I want to have an outcome that I can work on. Yes. And perfection it. You can see it from a utilitarian point of view. You can also see it from a humble point of view, because I'm saying it at some point. Not everything that I let out is, God sent.
Right. As you describe this, it reminds me that my early impression of you, even before we met, was that you were very prolific. That when you arrived in Spain 20 years ago, you became somebody that it seemed within the business of songwriting in Spain was recognized instantly as somebody who can write a song, finish a song, write a lyric, help somebody else deliver their song. I mean, it seemed like in the mid-1990s, you had at least one lyric on, a lot of important records. So people came to you because you could deliver it. You didn't necessarily need an angel to sit on your shoulder in order to write a song.
I can do that. I can sit and write right now, especially at this time of the morning. Yeah. When, ideas flow a little more fluently. But I don't do it a lot because I'm tired touring lately. I should go back to doing that. And I consider myself like, quite a lazy person too. I'm not systematical. I'm not organized. I'm very easily dispersed and very easily distracted. Since I get very easily distracted, I don't go very often into composition, because unless somebody really asks me to do, or I myself ask myself, because I would start now writing, but in half an hour I know I have to go, for example, or I would, since I have little children at home, and so somebody would come into my life, or I will have to go and pick up some of them, and that's a very frustrating sensation when you go into composition and you come out halfway. So I hate coming out halfway. It's something that I only get involved in when I know I can finish it. It's like sex. I mean, you don't get involved in that unless you have a certain amount of time. I don't say it doesn't have to be that long, but at least some focus. I mean, you just you don't get involved in sex in an elevator. I mean, you do, but it is done. But not in a systematic way.
Yes.
I mean, you don't deepen
Yes.
Oh, yes, you might. I don't know. I might take that out.
Okay.
No. I mean, I because I might be wrong with that.
You know, the expression people say in English is, I guess it's a Latin phrase, is coitus interruptus.
Yeah, I know. I made that comparison before, and it's when once you say coitus interruptus or you talk about sex in an interview, it comes over and over to you after the years because it's the things that people
But they love this. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's really inspiration is a thing that I need to close when I start.
Yes.
And otherwise, it's why? Because I get very seriously into composition. I involve myself, and once you involve yourself, it's like it's like taking off all your clothes and then having to get dressed very quickly because you have something else to do. It's like, it's once you're in there, you want to use that moment to get deeper. And that's how.
You heard it here from Jorge Drexler. Once he says coitus interruptus in an interview, that's all anyone wants to talk about. They just keep focusing on the fact that he said coitus interruptus in an interview. People just can't let that go that Jorge Drexler said coitus interruptus in an interview. Actually, I loved when he just said, the essence of writing is finding that vector that goes from your heart to the paper like a thread. Folks, you can let the Third Story podcast be a vector to your heart. Subscribe at third-story.com to get new episodes when they come out every other Thursday. While you're there, you can sign up to the mailing list to get a special note from me talking about every episode, and you can also subscribe on iTunes to the podcast to have it delivered magically into your phone or iTunes library whenever a new episode comes out. Now here's the final and for me, the most personal part of our interview in which he reveals what he believes is his purpose on Earth. How many people can actually say that? I'm still looking for it, I can tell you that. How about you?
You started describing your life this morning by talking about some of the logistical and economic realities of touring and how choices are made. Your career is more directed towards Latin America today than it was before,
and North America too. I like the Americas concept, the whole of it.
The concept of I like the Americas concept too.
I like the Americas concept, and once you live in Europe, you realize that there's many things in common. The relationship with space, with history, with novelty, with integration, with...
Yes. Because you're somebody who has lived in Europe, you've traveled all around the Americas, you become somebody who can help to bridge the gap for all of these different people. For example, discovering decimas and discovering that there's a tradition of spontaneously improvising decimas in all these countries where they did not know that it was a phenomenon all over the Americas. Does it change the way you think about writing and what your responsibility is when you think about your role in the Americas?
Yeah, we've known each other for a long time, for maybe 17, 18 years, no, Leo? So this is like a conversation that's going on in front of a microphone. But it's a kind of interaction that's been going on outside the microphone a lot. And I think I told you this before, and we know each other from this. I think I realized that I came to this planet to build bridges at some point. I don't know. I don't think I don't consider it only a positive appreciation. It's also a cross that you bear. Since I was a little child, might have to do with my double origin. My father being a German Jew and my mother being an agnostic Uruguayan, and from trying to understand the almost opposite ways they had, my mother and my father, they have of the world today. They still have opposite ways of understanding reality. They have different ways to relate to property, to history, and to religion, to every possible thing you would find. So I grew up. I'm the older son of that union built in love, by love and only by love, because they didn't have many things in common, and so I had to learn through love to understand that there is more than one view of things. once you try to compatibilize as a small child, try to understand your reality and see this can be right and I understand it, but this other thing can also be right, and you know what, I also understand this point of view. Once you are in that, you're fucked for life. And you're also blessed at the same time, because it's your cross and it's your characteristic, and you better know that you have to deal with that, because you're gonna try to please too many people at some points, but you'll also build bridges between people at some point, and you will have doubt as a fuerza motriz. How do you say that? If you're doubt
as an impulse, as a motivator,
as como un dynamo. Like it's like the wind for a sail ship, for example.
Yes.
And you will have always two options about things. So you will be in a good place to put one hand to one side and one hand to the other, and you say and build that kind of bridge. So I've been always in the middle, always balancing different points of view, and that helps me, to make somebody understand. What you're doing here is like what this other person is doing there. So, and I think I've been doing that for my whole life. I sincerely don't consider it good or bad. It's just like we said, it's identity. It's what you are. Yeah, that relationship between let's call it the igniter and the carer. What do you say? The
caretaker.
The caretaker and the igniter. I mean, that's also a dual relationship. I tend to come to a place where I have two options, and I just build a bridge between the two of them. I don't take only one option. I don't know how to explain that in another way, but I couldn't only have the caretaker, just trying to be creative in a bureaucratic or logistic way. Just organizing my thoughts very carefully. I need the spark, to download things, but then I also put aside for a little while that dynamic part of, and I take care of what I did. So it's again, I build an equilibrium between two tendencies within myself.
Yourself.
And you will find that in 60% of my songs, in the lyrics. Yo soy el moro judío que vive con los cristianos. Yo no sé de dónde soy, mi casa está en la frontera. It's in the borderline, which is a bridge, basically. You have lots of contradictions that are compatibilized inside the lyrics I use.
Guitarra y voz, the whole lyric.
Guitarra y voz, and que viva la ciencia, que viva la poesía. Then you have it from the beginning. Long live the igniter, long live the caretaker. It's like, and the way I try to compatibilize the scientific side I had with the
poetic
crazy poetic side. And try to always to have a grip on both of them. And right now I am unbalanced. I've been on the road too long, and I need the other thing. That's why I feel really I've been uncomfortable the last months, just thinking I need to go somewhere else. I need to move somewhere else. I need to stop.
Yes.
Not move. I need to stop and be at home. This is you're sitting in paradise with me. People left the house. The children are at the school, everybody's out, I'm alone. This is a moment where I grab a book, or hopefully I will grab the guitar, but right now I don't feel like playing the guitar. I feel like reading, or or maybe watching a documentary, or just stretching, doing something that I enjoying loneliness and solitude.
Yes. Well, you can't do it all. You have to choose one.
Yeah. Well, I will choose two. And we'll build a bridge between the two. That's why I'm not really good at being orthodox or following until the end of a line. I always stop before I get to the end. The only thing I really go to the end is like that thing of bridge building.
You finish the bridge,
which is a contradiction. The only thing I'm good at going till the end of the line is it's staying at the middle between two different options. I don't know if it makes any sense. I'm 51. There's some things that I will change, and some other things I won't at this stage of my life. So
I see what you describe in some ways as being constantly in the balance that we all are dealing with between being a child and being a parent. You know, I mean, there's a part of you that wants to still experience life as a child, and there's a part of you that wants to be the responsible one.
Yeah, and yeah. It rings a bell to me. I mean, since I was a little child, I always felt that I would love to keep that childish thing. I mean, I changed completely. I left my complete 10-year career of medicine when I was 30 to pursue a crazy idea of living of songwriting, and so I can't say I'm a conservative person, but I never felt I was doing a crazy thing. I just felt I was following my instinct and in a very rational way. You know, I was very. That's what I like about Spinoza, for example. No, it's achieving spirituality through reason. You know, but knowing that reason it's al servicio. How do you say? It's in service of emotion. You know, and it has to deal with that, and there has to be an equilibrium between the two of them. So we are again talking about a dual relationship. Yes. and building a bridge between the two of them.
Jorge Drexler, thank you so much for spending the morning with me.
Okay, thank you, Leo, for this chat. It was great. One more chat.
Yes. This time with the microphone.
This time in the morning and sober, which is...
Yeah, I know, it would have been different.
There you have it, friends. Building bridges with the great Jorge Drexler. If you enjoyed this episode and you're wondering what to do with that feeling, here are some suggestions. Number 1, channel it into whatever it is that you do. Take this feeling and put it into your own heart. Number 2, leave a review or rate the episodes on iTunes. If you're wondering what mitzvah you can perform today, believe me when I tell you, that's the one. And if you're still hungry for more conversations like this one, I bet you'd enjoy previous episodes with the singer-songwriters Alex Cuba, Greg Holden, Madeline Peru, and Jesse Harris. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you soon.